CSIs took the stand on the ninth day of trial yesterday in San Antonio, and there are some interesting updates I need to provide. Here's what we're talking about today. This is the trial of San Antonio police officers for the murder of Melissa Perez. Melissa Perez was the 46-year-old woman who was suffering a schizophrenic episode. She was killed by 3 San Antonio police officers in 2023. They were fired, her family sued, a federal magistrate dismissed their excessive force case. The state indicted all 3 officers for the killing, and the trial is ongoing as this video is being made. Now, before we begin, I need to give a shout out to a person, and she knows who she is, who passed along some inside information. It's inside in that she lives inside the San Antonio area and is familiar with the players, and here is what she told me. As for today's video, they are not arguing this in front of the jury. The jury keeps getting sent out as soon as they are seated. There are too many lawyers in this case, and most of the defense lawyers used to be prosecutors in the same office as the current prosecutors, causing the current prosecutors to have to choose their words very carefully. Darrell Harris, the tall black prosecutor, is in the civil rights section of the prosecutor's office. The original judge had to recuse. There are 6 defense lawyers. Each defendant has 2 lawyers. This is truly a battle of lawyers in my layperson opinion. They have not charged the cop who escalated this incident. He was the second to testify and ended up taking the 5th on redirect at the advice of the defendant's lawyers after they got him to testify what they wanted from him. I do hope he ends up getting charged. She also tells me that she got interested in the trial from my videos and that she sometimes disagrees with me. I said, "Good, you should disagree on things. I learn a lot more from disagreement than I do from agreement. That's just the way it works. It's like you learn more from failure than from success. And if people are always agreeing with you all the time on everything, well, it may signal that you're just in an echo chamber. And so it is always good to have somebody call you out and say, I disagree on this issue. Because you know what? I'm human. I might be wrong. Now, usually most lawyers won't tell you that. But yeah, I've made mistakes before. So if you see something and you think I got it wrong, you should speak up in the comments or drop me an email like this lovely lady did. I have to tell you how wonderful it was to get the clue from this lovely person that a different channel than the one I had been using for the audio for that video had audio that didn't sound like it had been recorded with a tin can and a piece of string. She's made my videos better for that reason. The audio is now something you can actually hear. So today we're looking at the cross-examination of one of the CSIs, and the state would not have called the CSIs if they did not have information that helped the state's case. That's pretty much going to be any witness in the guilt phase of this case. If the state calls you, you're going to say something that helps them. Defense lawyers accept that, but once the state's through with them, the defense attorneys turn those witnesses into their witnesses. As you know, one of the themes during the opening was the state did a very sloppy, shoddy investigation in this case. It was a very incomplete investigation because they didn't get a second search warrant for over a year. It appears that the police and the prosecutors made the decision at some point to charge these officers and may have done so without preserving some of the evidence. Of course, the CSI testified to all the evidence that she gathered, all the photographs she took, all the relevant pieces of evidence that she found. But she did that because she was directed to do that. Now, if you or I were told that a homicide occurred inside an apartment, and we were told that we needed to go look for evidence related to that homicide, you and I would probably go and look in every nook and cranny in that apartment to see what we could find and see what might be of value. Remember, during an investigation, the aim of the investigation is to get to the truth. The aim of the investigation is not to pin the blame on someone. Sometimes that becomes the aim of the investigation. So, in the questions that follow, listen to these questions and we'll talk about the answers. One further note. Repeatedly, defense lawyers say, I'm not blaming you. You weren't directed to do this. The CSI is not going and just using her own independent judgment about what evidence to gather. She's being directed by a detective or a sergeant in terms of what she should look for and what she should gather. And sometimes it's much more about what's not gathered than what is gathered. And one further note, there have been some deviations from the standards that are usually used in conducting an investigation. One of the things that we learned in the Karen Reed case, of course, is that whenever there is an investigation and there is a crime scene, the crime scene has to be preserved by virtue of having a crime scene log. Everybody who enters into the crime scene and everybody who comes back out of the crime scene, their entry has to be recorded and their exit has to be recorded. So as we start this series of clips, this clip is about that crime scene log. At least that's how it starts.
I do not recall on this case, but I have been to previous scenes where I have to process, and there usually is a patrol officer who is writing down names, badge numbers. But I do not recall on this particular day if there was or was not.
Right. So, in your past experience, that is the practice per the general manager.
Yes, correct.
That form 4130 is filled out when there's an officer involved shooting, correct?
Correct.
All right. And I don't want to criticize you, but why it wasn't filled out is beyond your pay grade, right?
Yes.
And so we would have to ask either the chief of police or Lieutenant Cotton why that happened, correct?
I do not know who you would need to ask, but I know that responsibility does not lie on myself.
All right. You told us that it's important to maintain the chain of custody. It's important to have 4130 filled out. You can't alter evidence. If someone were to go into the crime scene and there was no record of it, would that concern you?
Yes.
Okay, why is that?
Because then the crime scene could be altered.
All right, and prior to testifying today, probably about, 35 minutes ago, did I ask you to view certain videos?
Yes.
And I can show them to you again, but I'm going to ask questions. If you want to see them again, we can show them. I can show them to you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Would you agree with me that you saw clips of Officer Rubio, Alvaro, Andrade, and Robertson's body worn cameras?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that by looking at all of those videos, we see that William McManus walked under the crime scene tape at approximately 3:15:59?
Yes.
All right. And that at 3:16:17, he walked towards Unit 3102 into the breezeway?
Yes.
All right. And that at 3:17:04, exited Unit 3102 at the breezeway?
Yes.
And at 3:17:07, he moved in front of the patio rails of apartment 3102.
Yes.
And that he exited under the crime scene tape at 3:19:48.
Yes.
All right. So would you agree with me that based upon those timestamps on the video that he was at the crime scene for 3 minutes and 38 seconds?
Correct.
All right. And when I say crime scene, we're talking about inside the tape.
Correct.
And we know from Defendant's Exhibit 1, he was at 6200 Old Pearsall Road for approximately an hour, correct?
Correct.
All right.
For those of you who are not from the San Antonio area, you may not know who William McManus is. William McManus is the Chief of Police of the San Antonio Police Department. And Chief McManus has not been very complimentary of these three officers, as you might suspect. In fact, let's take a look at some of his public statements. On June 23rd, one of the three officers opened fire, Police Chief McManus said during a June news conference, after Perez threw a glass candlestick at the officers, then swung a hammer at them. All three officers then fired when Perez approached them, again with the hammer, hitting her at least twice, according to McManus. The officers' actions were not consistent with SAPD's policy and training, McManus said in June. They placed themselves in a situation where they used deadly force which was not reasonable given all the circumstances as we now understand them, he continued. Another outlet reported the same thing that the first one did, that the shooting officers' actions were not consistent with SAPD's policy and training. McManus said at a late Friday news conference, they placed themselves in a situation where they used deadly force, which was not reasonable given all the circumstances as we now understand them. This event does not accurately reflect the high level of dedication and commitment demonstrated by our over 2,500 officers, McManus said. So he took a swipe at their professionalism as well. I'm frequently amazed at people in law enforcement who get ahead of the news cycle by making claims and saying things that they may have to later walk back. Somebody mentioned the other day that they didn't like Sheriff Judd because he talked about these people and we never get to hear whether they were convicted or acquitted. And there is some truth in that. For example, in the Colin Griffith case, he pretty much had him packed up and ready to go to the state prison, and of course, the jury let him go. But in this case, I think it's especially noteworthy that the police chief has kind of been leading the charge here to get rid of these officers, and that is going to feed into the defense strategy. That's going to feed into essentially a claim, in some respects, I think, that they are biased against Hispanic officers because all of the officers that are involved in this and that are charged in this are Hispanic. And a lot of that has to do with the percentage of Hispanics in San Antonio, but it may also be from another cause. We just don't know.
Now, would you agree with me that your cameras use digital media to collect film or images, correct?
Correct.
And can you explain to the jury, if you know, what metadata is for that media?
No, I would not be able to explain that. I'm sorry.
Okay, but do you know what metadata is?
Yes.
All right. Do you are you trained that metadata for your film, the photographs that you take, have a time and date stamp on it?
Yes.
And so when Chief McManus was in the crime scene, if we were to look at your metadata on your digital photographs, we could see where you were located, correct?
Correct.
All right. And has the prosecution asked you to bring any metadata to court to see where you were?
No.
All right.
So the argument here is going to be, why didn't you produce this metadata? Why weren't you asked to bring that metadata with you to court so that we could use that metadata to find out where you were? Of course, the answer to that is they could have requested it in discovery, but probably didn't think of it until right before trial. For those of you who may not know, almost all commercial cameras like the Nikons and the Canons and the Panasonics and pretty much Sony's, pretty much anybody else, and certainly iPhones have what's called EXIF data, EXIF. And EXIF data includes, among other things, not only the time and date where it was taken, but if the camera has a GPS, of course, iPhones all have GPS, it will record the GPS location of where that photograph is taken. For example, this one. This is a photograph I took from across the fjord in Tromsø, Norway. You can see up here on the right the date and time when it was taken, August 31st at 3:18 p.m. That's local time, of course. And then you can see the map and the pin in the map down below where the photograph was taken from. And of course, it's going across the fjord there, looking in Tromsø, where the big cathedral is. Beautiful structure there. It looks a lot like the Air Force Academy Cathedral.
I believe this has been marked for identification as Defense Exhibit 105. We could scooch it a little bit so we could. Whoops. Okay. If this was in the bedroom, you wouldn't have been able to see it, correct?
No, I would not have seen it.
And next one. And that's exhibit 104. If that was in the master bedroom, you would not have been able to see it, correct?
No.
You agree?
Well, I did not see this at all. So I don't know where it was located at.
But if it was in the master bedroom,
Correct.
or if it was in the corner bedroom, you wouldn't have seen it.
Correct.
And I believe we're looking at defendant's exhibit 102. Same question. If it was either in the master bedroom or the corner bedroom, you would not have seen it.
Correct.
So, of course, those are the batteries, among other things, from the smoke detectors and the alarm system that Melissa Perez, cut, and that's what got the fire department out there. And she took them back to her apartment, allegedly. I don't know if that's been proved yet or not. Allegedly, she took them back into her apartment, which would have been theft, which would have been stealing, maybe larceny, I'm not sure. But whatever the crime would have been charged, that's what it would have been. And they would have had a valid reason to go in and get that stuff. But more importantly, if that was in there and she didn't go into the bedrooms because she was not told she needed to, then how would she know what was in the bedroom? And so it's essentially the defense here making out the case that there is none so blind as those who will not see. Basically, do an investigation, but do it like the three monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil, get your promotion, so to speak. I think they're building that narrative. I'm not sure how well this is resonating with the jury because I don't think their questions explain enough about what they're doing. But I'm sure we will hear more about this as the trial progresses. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here today. If you have the opportunity today, try to do one kind thing to help somebody else. Any kind thing will do. Buy somebody a Coke, get them a cup of coffee, anything that makes their day better. That would be a way to help make the world a better place. Because after all, isn't that what we're all after? Now, YouTube has a few things that they think you might be interested in, and they're going to be showing you that right up there.